In this video, you will learn how to add integers on a number line and with counters. Remember that integers are all whole numbers and their opposites, and 0. Our first example is pretty simple. You already know how to add 2 plus 4, but let's look at how it works on the number line. 0 is always our starting point. Then we move to the left or the right, depending on if the first number is positive or negative, and we go to that number on the number line. So in this case, we move 2 to the right to get to positive 2. Then we add 4. Adding on the number line goes to the right, so we move to the right 4 spaces. That brings us to the 6. That's our answer. Let's look at example 2. What happens when we introduce negatives into this? Negative 2 plus negative 4. Just like with the first example, we start at 0, but then we go 2 to the left to get to negative 2. Then when we add negative 4, we did say that adding means you go to the right. But because you're adding negative 4, that changes our direction again. So we actually go to the left 4 spaces. That takes us to the negative 6. Negative 2 plus negative 4 equals negative 6. Example 3, negative 2 plus 4. Notice in this problem that the signs on the two numbers are different. One of them is negative and one of them is positive. Let's see what happens. Again, like in the other two examples, we start at 0. We first have to get to negative 2 by going 2 spaces to the left. Then when we add 4, we go 4 spaces to the right, just like normal adding. That brings us to 2, positive 2. So negative 2 plus 4 is actually positive 2. Example 4, 2 plus negative 4. We always start at 0. Then to get to 2, we have to move 2 spaces to the right. Now we need to add negative 4. Remember, adding means we go to the right on the number line. But when we add a negative, we switch directions and go to the left on the number line. So we were at 2. Then when we go 4 spaces to the left on the number line, we end up at negative 2. So 2 plus negative 4 equals negative 2. Let's look at a different way to think about adding. Let's add with counters. Example number 5 is 3 plus 5. You know the answer. When we add with these two-sided counters, one side is yellow and one side is red. The yellow side represents positive numbers, while the red side represents negative numbers. So 3 plus 5 means we're going to put down 3 yellow counters and 5 yellow counters, and then combine them together. We will end up with 8 yellow counters, which means 3 plus 5 equals positive 8. Example number 6 is negative 3 plus negative 5. Remember, the red counters represent negative numbers. So we're going to use 3 red counters plus 5 red counters. And when we combine them, we will end up with 8 red counters. So that stands for negative 8. In example 7, negative 3 plus 5, we have two numbers that have different signs. One sign is negative and one sign is positive. Let's see what happens. 3 red counters are used to represent negative 3, and 5 yellow counters are used to represent positive 5. We can't actually combine these to make 8 because it would be like adding apples and bananas together. They're not the same thing. They're not the same unit. So let's look at what we have to do. If we rearrange the counters a little bit and we end up putting a yellow with a red counter, that ends up being what's called a 0 pair, because negative 1 plus 1 pretty much cancels each other out and makes 0. So when we put the 0 pairs together, we end up with 2 yellow counters left. 3 of the red counters and 3 of the yellow counters turned into 0. They basically canceled each other out. And what was left was the 2 yellow counters. So negative 3 plus 5 equals positive 2. And finally, example number 8 is 3 plus negative 5. So again, different signs, positive 3 and negative 5. We'll start with the 3 and represent that with 3 yellow counters, and then represent the negative 5 with 5 red counters. When we combine the 0 pairs, like we did in the last example, we put the 3 yellow counters together with the 3 red counters. Each of those cancels each other out and makes 0. What's left is 2 red counters, which equals negative 2. So 3 plus negative 5 equals negative 2. Now you should know how to add integers on a number line and with counters. Thanks for watching.